Since so many of you have shown an interest in my previous Over the Garden Wall fun facts video, and because I keep noticing new stuff in the series, I'm compiling a second list. This one's going to include behind-the-scenes sources as well as tidbits from tie-in media, like the official comics, the soundtrack releases, and the Forcera cassette. Links to buy these, if available, are in the description below. I'll save the comic trivia for last so as to avoid spoilers. Most of the unsourced facts I'll tell you come from the DVD's audio commentary, but ask below in the comments if you want details. Number 1. Let's start off discussing inspirations and original names. Original ideas for the series name include Torch Song of the Unknown, Lantern Song, The Speckled Hen, Lost in Dreamland, Don't Go Home, Saltbox Stories, The Old Lantern, Haunted Dreams, Long Gone, Haunted Woods, Dark Steam Shadows, Little Black Train, and of course Tome of the Unknown, which became the name of the pilot for the series. 2. Sarah's name came from a Stevie Nicks song of the same name.
Said Sarah, you're the poet in my heart.
3. The design for the Beast came partly from an indie art film about a man rejecting a highly technological society and running into the forest, entitled The Beast Pageant. 4. Wirt was originally named Walter. 5. Wirt's outfit design came from a fantasy rock and roll persona made by Pat McHale. He used to dress up in a Civil War cape and made the red hat himself. 6. The frog was originally Polly Wee. 7. Greg's outfit originally was a sailor suit. 8. Greg's teapot was originally a cooking pot, but Pat McHale felt it was too derivative of Johnny Appleseed. 9. Wirt and Greg were written to be annoying in different ways. Wirt's flaws were being overly dramatic and emotional, scared and worried all the time, while Greg is being fun and fancy-free and silly all the time. 10. The subtext of the story, according to Pat via a deleted scene, is that going home is the real unknown.
This place isn't scary. What's really scary is going home and facing your problems. That's the real unknown.
11. Greg's episodes were meant to lighten the series to take away from a darker and less accessible tone to the series, because too much Wirt might be overpowering. 12. The series was meant to have a dreamlike logic with physical settings changing according to the necessary mood in a way that doesn't jar the audience. 13. The series was named after a lost film starring silent film actress Bessie Love. 14. The whole show is fuzzy around the edges, giving it a nostalgic feel. 15. Backgrounds were based on elaborate old illustration style. 16. The opening was left to be completed until the series was halfway done to bookend the show. 17. The opening has that circular frame as a reference to old magic lantern slides. 18. The opening shows us yet another garden wall. 19. You can see not only Greg in this opening, but his rock facts rock. 20. The title card sequence got reworked a lot, originally filmed in live action with dry ice, but they scrapped it for feeling too 80s fantasy. 21. Throughout the show, the audience was supposed to be lost just as much as Wirt and Greg were, so few plot elements were explained right away or at all. 22. The moon we keep seeing was supposed to be the moon in the sky on the night the show aired, November 3rd, 2014. 23. A music box song plays whenever the woodsman's daughter is brought up, a theme that recurs in the comic.
Everyone has a torch to burn, and this here's mine.
24. One is a Bird, Beatrice's theme, plays when we first see the old grist mill, further foreshadowing their family owns it.
I found this homestead abandoned.
25. Nick Cross, while directing animation, chose to add shadows whenever the Beast was brought up. 26. According to the commentary, there's always a cat missing, and people go looking for it, and something horrible happens in horror movies, hence the kitty scene. 27. Greg comes out of nowhere with that board after having just been thrown by the dog. Probably a minor animation error, right? Nope. He gets thrown on the stairs above the woodsman with wood from the barrels still stuck to him. You can see it above his head when he comes through the door, which he uses to knock out the woodsman. Or try to. 28. Speaking of subtle animation touches, check it out. The dog knocks the door literally off its hinges. 29. How did Greg get up on this platform while Wirt was being chased? Oh, the ladder. 30. When they get up on the roof, Wirt opens the door for Greg, who pulls him up. This isn't important or anything, I just think it's cute. 31. The dog changed color because he was covered in oil before. 32. Jack Jones, voice of the frog, is credited as being 3 question marks due to the frog's lack of a permanent name. 33. The Pottsfield citizens' costumes, at least the non-pumpkin parts, are designed to resemble corn husk dolls. 34. The scenes were sometimes set up to imitate real photographic techniques, like the shafts of light when they're backlit at the barn. 35. See the pumpkin this guy's carving? It's for Larry, the skeleton we later see. 36. At first, we see the cat, revealed at the end of the show to be Enoch, dancing with two specific pumpkins, the nest hat lady and a guy with a hat. But a few seconds later, we see them dancing alone. That's because Enoch slipped away to go inside the big pumpkin-shaped maypole. To emphasize that, we get one more glance at those two before we see Enoch start to move inside the maypole. 37. At this scene, there was going to be a courtroom set up with Enoch as a judge, but it got simplified into the scene you see here. 38. Several scenes of Greg, Wirt, and Beatrice wandering through the woods got cut for time in this episode. 39. Miss Langtry was written specifically for her actress, Janet Klein. 40. Schooltown Follies was informed by tropes from films made in the 1940s. 41. The voice for this guy
is upon me!
is Elijah Wood, the voice for Wirt. 42. According to Pat McHale, probably the craziest recorded session was when Colin Dean, who voices Greg, and he kept shouting and taunting Elijah to get him as uncomfortable as possible for the embarrassing song he sings in episode 4.
Sing! Sing!
43. Here we see the toy maker painting a toy like the ones from the opening. 44. The Highwayman dance was inspired by old-school rotoscoping and made at a higher frame rate than the other parts of the show. 45. The midwife enthusiastically participates in the song about there being work for all when little boys get married. Seems like she's expecting not only a marriage, but kids. 46. Fred's voice actor was bad at horse noises, but was told, that's perfect for this particular horse. 47.
It helped me find this frog.
Referring to what happened right before they fell in the river. Greg remembers more than he lets on. 48. Notice this guy in the background saying, never say die, never say die.
Okay.
49. Blowing out the flame. Foreshadowing? 50. The woodsman and beast scenes were styled after German expressionist films. 51. The peacocks in this manor were inspired by scenes of a muster of peacocks in Washington Irving's Old Christmas. 52. Wirt and Beatrice had a deleted scene cut for time where they bonded over finding a small music box in the closet. 53. Endicott's Manor was inspired by a dream show creator Pat McHale had. In his dream, Pat went house hunting and found a secret library in a house for sale, but as he explored, he realized he had at some point entered someone else's home. 54. The kids from the opening are dressed like two background child frogs from this episode. 55. You can hear Elijah Wood moving away from the mic at the end of the song. 56. The framing here is weird. It's because we're seeing through the eye holes in Greg's drum. 57. Lullabies in Frogland was originally about Greg's frog meeting his father, which comes up in the serial comics. The later part of the episode was separate and involved an encounter with the woodsman, who they'd run from to take shelter with Adelaide. 58. Originally, Adelaide's desire for a child servant was inspired by jealousy over her sister's child servant, Lorna. 59. At one point, Adelaide had multiple arms, further evoking a spider. 60. The ringing of the bell, along with the pilot, were successfully used to pitch the show. 61. Did you recognize Tim Curry as Auntie Whispers? 62. This entire scene was painstakingly reworked when the creators found out that doorknobs weren't invented by the time period Lorna and Auntie Whispers existed, so putting a chair under a doorknob, as was originally boarded, was poor for world building. Technically, the floors should have been dirt instead of wood, but then Lorna and Wirt couldn't clean them. 63.
Did you know that dinosaurs had big ears, but everyone forgot because dinosaur ears don't have bones?
No.
There's really no way to disprove this, especially since dinosaurs span so many years and species that we'll never have a complete record of. We can compare them to modern living creatures like birds when trying to figure out what they looked like outside of skeleton structure and other trace fossil clues, but you can't prove no dinosaurs had ears.
You have no proof!
I hope Greg grew up to be a scientist. 64. Basing technique on old cartoon color processes, Greg's dream in Babes in the Wood eliminated yellow whenever possible. 65. Greg's dream purposefully makes the audience uncomfortable by not giving plot-related answers, playing on Greg logic. It lightens the tension in order to end on a dark note to subvert the audience's expectations, according to the audio commentary. 66. Some characters from Babes in the Woods were eliminated for being too creepy. 67. Pig with a tuba comes back. 68. The title card's coloring is dimmer in later episodes, making it difficult on some screens to see Greg there at all. 69. It goes fast, but Beatrice's huh is at seeing the beasts and Greg's footprints from the sky. 70. The beast's feet are weird three-toed things, which is easier to see in pre-production artwork and might have been removed for the final product. 71. Episode 9 was meant to be a case of unreliable narrators, since it was all technically Wirt's dream while unconscious. 72. Pat McHale, the show's creator, was the singer of The Fight Is Over, the song playing in the background. 73. Jason Funderburker's design was based on a teenage photo of Pat McHale himself. 74. According to the commentary, Jason Funderburker plays an important role in showing you how messed up Wirt is and how wrong Wirt is about his perception of reality. But Pat and Nick also mentioned that Jason really is the total package for himself, which is what Wirt sees since he's more confident than Wirt himself is. He's someone who lets the problems of life roll off his back compared to Wirt. In some ways, Wirt's right about Jason, but he's so wrong about himself compared to Jason. 75. Bluebirds really do this in winter to keep warm. 76.
Anything is possible if you set your mind to it, right? But
Echoes Greg's line to Wirt.
Wirt, you can do anything if you set your mind to it. That's what...
And to the Queen of the Clouds.
But anything is possible if you set your mind to it, right?
The Beast also prods Greg to repeat his never give up mantra from Schooltown Follies. Just how much has the Beast been listening to? 77. According to the commentary, the frog at this point is supposed to represent Greg's heart. 78. Beatrice's voice acting on this is great. Not until, and she pauses and says Greg is safe. She was likely thinking that she couldn't go home until she got the scissors, but she knew that wasn't the right thing to say to Wirt right now, and of course she does want to help Greg. Wirt probably knew that that's what she's thinking based on his pause before thanking her. 79. The last episode was written with an opera in mind, with the only visible things on screen being lit by the lantern and the rest of the screen being like a dark stage. 80. In the audio commentary, there's a lot of ways this story could have ended. There were a lot of different versions that were written to try to get the right lesson. There was a version where Wirt doesn't go home and he does stay out there, but it made more sense for him to learn how ridiculous all this stuff was and not really buying into the fantasy of false hope and kind of accepting things as they are. 81. The voice crack was voiced by Pat McHale. 82. Alternate designs were pitched for the Beast, but they chose his design based on trypophobia, the fear of many tiny holes. 83. When the boys are rescued, we see the silhouettes of the bird girl, Jason, Sarah, and 2 cops from the cop car. 84. At one point in production, Greg and Wirt were to arrive back home at Christmas time with their months of absence unexplained. 85. A couple of cut episode pitches. An old man who made dice out of children's bones and the children's spirits sang an eerie song from the basement to warn Wirt and Greg to leave the house. 86. A witch who took his or her skin off at night to fly around and dance on people while they slept. 87. Wirt becoming a gentleman burglar, like he gets caught sneaking into someone's house, and the widow of the house is sort of thrilled about meeting this charming young man. 88. And there was an episode about a town that looks like it's underwater, but Wirt and Greg can breathe fine, foreshadowing the ending. 89. Why does 2 Shoes from the For Sarah cassette sound so unrehearsed?
5 fingers to hold your... That's not very good.
It's improvisational. Improvisation is usually associated with jazz, but is a major part of blues too. 90.
A little bear sat on a chair. Knock, knock, knock! Who is there? Asked the bear.
This poem was written by Wirt as a kid. Greg found and memorized it. 91. The 4-part comics are as canon as they can get, being written by Pat McHale himself and taking place in between episodes of the show. The continuing comic series consults Pat about the lore and details of the unknown and is still mainly created by people involved in the original show. At this point, I'm going to discuss tidbits we've learned from details in the comic series. If you want to read them yourself and come back, consider yourself spoiler warned. 92. Beatrice reveals herself to be hardcore. A choice quote, "Sometimes you gotta smash a few faces to make a few bucks." 93. The comic shows us some versions of Sunbonnet Sue, a book character turned famous quote pattern popular in the 1930s. 94. Wirt officially trips over the garden wall. Har har. 95. The match brand Old Scratch isn't just a reference to a nickname for the devil, it's a joke about the original model of the Beast for Tome of the Unknown. 96. There's been some theories about why the carriage driver says, "The Beast is upon me," but the comic reveals he was just easily spooked by hearing voices from his secret passengers. 97. Fred is revealed to have been lying when he gave Wirt directions in the show since he wanted an excuse to run away from the highwayman. 98. You can see a sign pointing to Pottsfield here. 99. The bridge where Fred met the highwayman is St. Leonard's Bridge. St. Leonard is the saint of captives and horses, and Fred is both. 100. The highwayman is heavily implied to be a ghost, dead for over a century when Fred first met him. 101. Fred thinks his horse sounds are realistic. 102. Wirt admits that he put on his shoes mismatched because he was distracted on Halloween night. 103. Wirt's gone to school dances before without a date. 104. Beatrice, when deciding not to sacrifice the brothers to Adelaide, resigned herself to never being a human again, a surprisingly unselfish decision. 105. The woodsman's daughter is named Anna. She's the star of multiple issues of the continuing series. 106. Before his daughter's disappearance, the woodsman was insistent that she not go in the woods, maybe explaining why he freaked out and said,
Arms attached.
These woods are no place for children.
107. The Beast had his eye on the woodsman for quite a while before their meeting and is heavily implied to be the cause of his wife's mortal injury. 108. Originally, the Beast himself carried his own lantern. This might explain his little fight with the woodsman on screen over trying to grab it. The Beast doesn't want a woodsman. He just needs the lantern bearer to either hand over the lantern or continue to feed oil to the lantern. 109. Since I've used so many merchandise sources for this, let me also list a few tie-ins you might not know about, all of varying levels of canon. A read and listen record and storybook were released. The art's free online, but the audio is much harder to get a hold of. 110. The 4 Sarah cassette was really produced and sold in limited editions. 111. Coming out in September is the art book for Over the Garden Wall, which you can pre-order on Amazon. 112. There are also some collectible figurines, plushes, clothes, and accessories available, most of them sold through Hot Topic in the US. One even features an alternate universe Beast Greg as a variant. 113. If you'll let me, I'd like to end by discussing exactly what the unknown is, based on the material above and according to the show creators. In an interview, Pat McHale mentions the themes driving the unknown: death versus life, fantasy versus reality, and dreams versus wakefulness. Although it represents hypothetical stories that have once been told and were lost to time, the unknown is colored by the characters in them.
You're limiting the universe to only things humans can understand.
Well, you're limiting the universe by limiting the possibility of human understanding.
Oh, yeah.
As Pat says in the interview, if there is more to the universe than what humans can perceive, and of course there is, then maybe everything that can ever be conceived is floating around somewhere unseen and unknown in some abstract way. So maybe Wirt and Greg get a glimpse of it and make sense of these abstract concepts the best way they can understand it, goofy cartoon stories. Pat McHale also added that certain things are left undefined because it's the unknown. The stories which we see in the series are just fragments to an unknowable whole. As for who's perceiving the unknown as we see it, it's mostly Wirt. Even though Greg was a main character of the show, Wirt was really the center of focus, and the unknown reflects a lot about him. The audio commentary adds that the unknown is informed by Wirt's own mind so that he feels more comfortable there. The ongoing comic series goes so far as to show us a series of events from both Greg and Wirt's perspective, and wow, they're definitely very different. This really brings together the show in my opinion, especially the climax, where Wirt consciously chooses life, reality, and wakefulness over the dreamlike fantasy he could take by passively accepting death. The original concept for the series, in fact, was that Greg and Wirt wind up in the unknown by trying to escape death, with the Beast being a neutral character attempting to get them to accept their fate, with the big reveal being that the whole time, Greg and Wirt had been escaping life. All along, Wirt was subconsciously fighting the will to survive, because confronting your problems in life for him was more frightening than death. I believe many of these themes, if not the too grim for kids details, remain in the show and gave it such a powerful emotional impact that keeps us analyzing it and reanalyzing it to this day.
Smell you later.